Welcome to the Finding Purpose podcast. My name is Adam. I am your host. I wanted to thank everybody for really listening and rating and reviewing previous episodes and the podcast in general on Apple Podcasts. That will go a long way for me to grow this podcast and be able to reach a larger audience so that we could hopefully impact them positively to find their purpose and do big things in their lives and their communities. Today, I'm really lucky to have my friend Rob Tracz here. Rob is the founder of Tracz Taps. He's the founder of Taps Training. It is a business really built around just being a better person, both physically, mentally, and building the best you. Rob works with clients one-on-one. But I really want to go back to the beginning of our relationship. I met Rob when I first started a job at Equinox in Greenwich, Connecticut. And, you know, I was in sales and he was one of the personal trainers. And when you start that job, they make you do all these different things that we offer clients, one of them being an assessment. And Rob actually conducted my assessment. And, you know, we immediately hit it off. We were just talking, and there was a lot of things that he was doing that I had thought about doing and was looking to build, but I had just started this job and I wanted to settle in, and eventually I would go to Rob and explore, you know, these different avenues. So Rob, welcome, man. You know, I really appreciate you coming, especially you being such a big part of my early journey. And I'm so happy to have you.
Cool. No, appreciate you taking the time today to have me. I know it's been a little tough with our schedules to connect for different things, sushi, catch up, just hanging out. So I'm glad we were able to get this on the calendar.
Yeah, I mean, for the record, this is the third time me and Rob tried to record. We recorded once on a Zoom, and the software was weird. We recorded another. The audio was weird. And then after I had signed a contract with Podpopuli to produce my podcast, I was like, Rob, let's just do it in person. It probably makes way more sense. So third time's a charm.
Yeah.
You know, it's great to have you. You know, I really want to just kind of start from the beginning of your story. You know, you shared some of that with me as our friendship has grown. But tell my audience just a little bit of where you came from.
I guess you want me to start from like the beginning, like in Philly and everything? Yeah, so grew up, born in Philly, lived there until I was about 9, 10. Then parents got divorced. I moved to upstate New York. Switched a couple of different schools at a young age. Not very great for making and maintaining friendships. So eventually my mom, my sister, and myself, we found ourselves in a small town called Highland. Not really too much going on. There's a bunch of farms, a lot of apple farms. And yeah, that was pretty much it. I got connected with a couple of friends, built my way through sports. That became kind of like the beginning of what I consider one of the first principles of my life, challenging myself and building and growing. And through sports, I kind of led into more friends led to making sure that my grades were right for school, which then led to college and so on and so on.
Wow. Okay. There you go. Do you remember the early days in Philly?
Somewhat, to like little bit. You know, it's like the suburbs. I was outside of Philly about 15, 20 minutes. So.
Okay. But what really is a memory is obviously when your parents got divorced and you went with your mom. Did you and your sister go with your mom?
Yeah, we both did.
Okay. What was that transition like? Obviously, you know, I've dealt with friends and families whose parents went through a divorce. What was that like for you?
It sucks. I mean, I would imagine most kids dislike when their parents get divorced. You try to mask it with, you get 2 Christmases, 2 birthdays, that kind of thing. But it doesn't change it, because I remember from whenever they first got divorced to maybe even when I was like 16, 17, every year for Christmas and birthday, I would just wish for my parents to get back together. And that just never happened. And that sucks. So I didn't get to see my dad too much because he was about 3.5 hours away. So I remember a lot of long car rides, and just, it kind of sucks as a kid. So
yeah, absolutely. So like you and your sister, you moved to this suburban town in Pennsylvania still?
No, we moved to upstate New York, that Highland place.
Upstate New York.
Poughkeepsie area, very smallish school, graduated with
Dutchess
like
County,
140. Dutchess is Poughkeepsie. We're across the river, so we were Ulster County.
Ulster County, okay.
Yeah.
And what was that like change of scenery like for you and your sister? Obviously, you're the man in the house, and you have your mom and your sister. That changes your role. Did you sense the transformation there?
No, because we're talking young, like first, second, third grade, fourth grade. That's when we found ourselves locked in at Highland. So switching all those schools was difficult because you don't know anybody. I mean, I didn't know at the time, but I was kind of like the short dweeby, out of shape kid. Video games is what I like to do. I was not into sports at all. In fact, I got tricked into going to football practice by. Did you ever meet my buddy Caswell?
Maybe. I think you've talked about him to me, definitely.
Well, yeah. So he was one of my best friends, and we used to play Pokemon cards and video games. And his dad was actually the youth football coach. So me hanging around with Sean a whole lot naturally got me to the football field, but I didn't know anything about the sport, and I showed up to practice wearing jeans the first day. And
What grade was this?
This was like third grade.
That's so funny.
Third grade going fourth grade.
It was Pop Warner?
Yeah.
Dude, that's so funny because I can't even like picture you being a nerd and like a video game dude. So you know, that friendship obviously is a valuable one. I mean, you guys are still friends. How did that first experience jumping into an arena that you actually had no knowledge of feel?
It was terrifying, but like I had a few friends because of the school, and I'm kind of starting to develop some friends. Playing a sport, I had no idea what I was doing, and I didn't have any of those friends with me actually. So because I was heavier, I had to play with the older kids who I didn't know any of them. So I'm by myself getting physically abused in practice because I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm just getting hit left and right all the time. Playing offensive line, but I don't know how to block. I don't want to block. I don't want to do anything physical. And it was a learning experience for me. I didn't know what to do. So I was just kind of paying attention to what was going on around me. And I noticed that the more popular kids, they were leading the workouts. They were doing all the jumping jacks, and they were running the fastest. And they knew all the plays. Everybody knew them, and I didn't know anything. What I could do, though, was I could start to pay attention to the warm-up, and that's what got me into the whole working out kind of thing, because I would do those jumping jacks, those stretches, those things at home until I got a little bit better at it. And then that led me into getting a little bit better shape, a little bit more athletic, and then so on. It was just kind of scaling up till eventually I started to play a little bit. Shout out to Kevin Matcham for food poisoning and letting me jump into a position that I didn't play, running back. But that led me into more playing time and a little more attention from the other kids, which then blossomed into friendship and stuff, as I was saying before.
So that's awesome. So that was really your first exposure to coaching.
Yeah, definitely.
What were the coaches that really inspired you in those early years?
Coach Caswell, so Sean's dad. He's still, we still call him Coach. He's still a big role model and influence in myself and a lot of my friends' lives. So much so that our relationship is still super strong today. Not as strong as it is because I don't get to see him as often. But for Christmas, for the past like 10 years or so, I think I would at least go over and spend an hour at their house with their family. And he kind of became like another dad to me, and learned a lot of lessons from him. And in fact, when Sean was overseas fighting in Afghanistan, we would still go over on Sundays and watch football with his dad, Coach Caswell.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome to have that role and have someone who just comes in and takes you under their wing and guides you and, you know, really has a role in making you become a man. And, you know, that's hard, you know, after, you know, experience the distance from your own father and then finding Coach Caswell as kind of a mentor. So was that when you first were like, hey, you know, this coaching stuff, I like it. What drew you to it? Because obviously you're a coach now. Having that early taste, did it even click to you that this might be something that I might want to do?
No, not at all, actually. So it was that through youth and middle school, getting into high school. Another great coach or mentor of mine was Coach McFarland. He was football and wrestling coach, and he really pushed me like physically. So I hated wrestling, but I needed to show up because I was now put in a leadership role model position for a lot of other athletes on the team, even guys that are same age as me, same grade as me. They would look to me as somebody that they'd want to be like. And that would motivate me to keep going to practice, keep showing up, even if I didn't want to. And that really helped me build the discipline. So I think with the youth sports, great role models of coaches, really pushing myself through, I didn't know that I wanted to be a coach. I just knew that being physically active and pushing myself was something that I needed to continue doing. And that kept pushing me to the new levels of playing college football, then switching over to rugby, staying in that athletic world. And I think because my family was split as a younger kid, my sports teams became my new families by choice. So as long as I had a team or something to work together with other individuals, I would be able to create my own family, my own community. And in college, you have to have that rude awakening where maybe I'm not going to have that same level of competitiveness. There's always going to be sports and things you can do, but it's not necessarily the same where you're working day in and day out towards that championship or whatever it might be. And I think that made it an easy shift for me into the coaching world, because that puts me in there with the athletes, with the different teams, still working together for the common goal as a strength and conditioning coach. Yeah. And I think that's where I got into the whole coaching, and because I love fitness and things like that, it just seemed like a right fit. And it wasn't until recently with the whole shift into my prime performance coaching where now it's more than just the strength and conditioning. There's a lot of other aspects to it, especially with like the entrepreneurial world and things like that.
Yeah, man. I mean, in one of our previous conversations, you talked about how discipline was really important because at the same time in your family life, you also had to adapt to, okay, I'm leaving here, got to go to dad's. I'm leaving here, got to go to dad's. So having to comply with that schedule and then obviously your own athletic schedule was the incorporation of discipline at a very young, early age, which obviously you just built upon as the years progressed. You know, I want to talk a little bit about how you just leveled up, you know, in the world of athletics, in the world of, and then which eventually compounded into a world of coaching. Was there someone who pushed you into that? Because what was your major in college?
Undergrad was kinesiology, which is the study of human movement. Okay. And grad school was exercise science with a concentration in performance enhancement and injury prevention. So it's improving and bettering and trying and making sure you have the checks and balances that you don't overdo it or cause injury and stuff like that. So that transfers over into what I do now because it helps me create systems and programs for people to move and get better in personal development while also still having a lot of those checks and balances and making sure that you don't push into like burnout and things like that.
That's so funny, bro, because you were playing video games and this one dude was like, hey, like come to football practice with me. Yeah. And then you made that your major and you built not only your brand, but like who you are around that. I want to talk about wellness in general. And what do you feel is the biggest mistakes or the things that people ignore that are simple fixes for them to not only be physically well, but mentally well and emotionally well?
What are some of their easy fixes that they can do?
Yeah, what are things that people often just ignore and they're easy fixes?
Well, so it's kind of tough to dive into that because everybody's so individualized. So everyone has different issues and different things that they should be addressing. But I think the overarching theme, though, would be awareness. I don't think enough people have the awareness or at least the ability or means to strategies to check in with themselves and make sure what's going on. Because, as you know, I've been in situations where I was working 60, 70-hour work weeks for almost 3 weeks or 3 years. I lacked that awareness because I was just so focused on building more clients, making more money, and so on and so on. I wasn't checking in with myself. I wasn't paying attention to the friends that I was losing, the opportunities I was missing out on, the other people in my life that I was hurting that I would never be able to get back to until I was rejected that distraction, which was that full schedule. So when I had that break from that full schedule, that was where I was able to kind of reflect and start that awareness journey and why I put so much emphasis on awareness in different aspects of your life.
How long were you operating under that guise of not really being aware of what you're doing to yourself. And what do you think was motivating you to just continue it?
So just a second ago, you mentioned how it was kind of funny that I was playing video games and then everything kind of switched. I think it kind of stems back to me as a child, split parents, younger sister, older child. Maybe I wasn't getting the attention that I needed as a kid. So I was always kind of seeking that attention from other things and areas. Video games is easy because it gives you that instant gratification. You leveled up. Congratulations. Good work. I think that was also with the sports. The harder I worked, the better I got. The better I got, the better our teams got, and so on. So there's that attention there. More friends, connecting, socializing, more attention. Grad school, studies, getting better job, a better job equals more money is more attention. And I think when my dad was sick and I continued to push for work, it was mostly for that attention. But I didn't realize that sacrificing for that hypothetical attention, I was losing all that attention I had around me. So like the relationship with the girl I was dating at the time deteriorated and fell apart. I didn't understand how she couldn't see what I was doing was for a bigger picture, but I was in the wrong because I wasn't paying attention to her. Mm-hmm. So I was sacrificing her for myself. Then a lot of my friends and my family working holidays, they didn't see what I saw because I couldn't see myself. I just continued to be selfish, looking for that more attention. Almost like badge of honor. Look, I'm doing great. I'm working so much, blah, 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 blah. Whereas when I'm pushing people around who actually care about giving me attention, seeking attention from others, I'm just stuck in that loop where now I don't have any attention. And now I'm just by myself, lone, isolated. And then until that opportunity where I had that chance to kind of reflect on what's going on.
I mean, you talked a little bit about like while your dad was dying and you were in this grind vision. Was it a little bit also just you didn't want his struggle to be real? Like you were just like, all right, like I don't want to talk about that. I don't really want to deal with that right now because it's painful. And I'm just going to grind and do my thing and everything's going to be okay.
Oh, yeah, 100%. So I didn't tell anybody my dad was sick up until the day I was driving up and down to Philly from Greenwich. So it was about 2.5 to 3.5 hours, depending with traffic, every single day that he was in hospice, just like praying that he wouldn't pass while I was at work with clients and then just rushing back there and staying at his bedside every night for about a week. And that back and forth, nobody knew because I was driving in the evenings and such until he actually passed. And then I had to cancel all my clients. And everybody freaked out. They're like, oh, what's going on? Where's Rob? So then I had to share what was going on. But I didn't even take time off. I just went right back to it. I took that day he passed off and the day of the funeral off. And I was right back into the grind because it was a distraction. I didn't have to think about that. Yeah. And it's easy to bury it into the business or pretending like I'm super productive and busy so that I don't have to pay attention to what's actually happening on the inside.
Yeah.
Until that one Friday night when I was looking to fill my schedule and I couldn't do it because no one was around. It was a holiday. And then that forced me to, hey, what am I doing this Friday? I'm sitting here frantically swiping through my phone to fill my schedule, but I can't find anybody. So I was like, what's going on? I used to have friends, like good times with food, music, all that other stuff. And now I'm just sitting by myself. And I'm like, how long can I do this for? And why do I even want to do this? It doesn't make any sense. So then that's when I was like, I got to change something.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's like, I get that where you're so locked in. And for me, it was a little darker, where it was, I pushed everyone away because I was just laser focused on just honestly getting fucked up, and, where people were like, the calls to hang out and the calls to do this and the calls to do that. They eventually just trickled away because people just stopped bothering. And for me, I got angry at them. Like, why aren't you calling me? Or you're not my friend anymore. Just harboring all these resentments when really, I pushed them away. I was so laser focused. So when you hit that wall, we'll call it a wall, and, your dad passed away, and what was the one thing that you really just like, what did it feel like in that moment? And what changes did you start to incorporate to just not be so isolating?
Well, the immediate thing from there was like, what do I do now? I have this little bit of a window. Let's find some friends, find some people. No one's around or anything. So then that's kind of like when I started partying myself a little bit more, and then it became working and partying, and then the only thing I was neglecting was myself. And then eventually you can't do everything. So then it became, I got to readdress what's going on. I got to look at myself, because as a strength and conditioning coach, I was in pretty poor shape. I wasn't strong. I wasn't dedicated, running on fumes, like barely any sleep. And I needed to shift it, take my training a little more seriously, get myself into pushing myself. I fell into that trap of comfort over everything. And I just continued looking for the easy way out until I realized I was like, hey, I need to challenge myself. I need to push myself, because there's that pressure that is going to push me to do better things.
That's awesome, man. And, like taking that self-inventory and being like, hey, I need to start working out. I need to budget my time better. I need to connect with actual people who I enjoy being around. And this was what year?
This was 2028 or 2018 or 19.
2028.
Yeah.
It's like shit, man. So in 2018, right after the Eagles won the Super Bowl, might I add.
I remember that too, because my dad was gone and I was celebrating the win for him.
Was he a Birds fan?
Oh yeah, hardcore.
Fuck yeah, dude.
I'm from Philly, dude. That's where he's about. So
that's so great. I love that. Yeah, man. So like 2018 is really when you jumped into the personal development space as well. When did you launch your business?
January 2017 is when I started, because I had maxed out my in-person coaching. I couldn't fit anymore. So then that's where I started with the supplements, began with vanilla protein, built the chocolate, and then so on and so on. And then from there I started doing online coaching, fitness coaching, and it was that way for a little while. And I don't think until that turning point on about a year or so or after my dad had passed, that I was like, okay, now it's time for me to start again with like training, taking care of myself, looking to optimize my day, paying more attention to what I'm eating and consuming and stuff like that. And I think once I made that shift back into, all right, let me start listening to podcasts, and then I started listening to personal development podcasts, and that kind of began the tips and tricks on how to kind of make my life better. But I've always had a little bit of a knack for personal development. I was on the Men's Health Fitness Council for a few years back in, I think, 2015 or 16. And my buddies used to joke at me all the time, because I would just read the magazines and I would just like share random facts. Like, oh, if you go outside between 6 a.m. and 6:35 a.m., you have a greater chance of growing your hair at a rate of 15 millimeters per hour or something. There's something stupid.
This is bullshit, yeah.
Because they're just random statistics. But I used to like
it might be real.
Those numbers. I don't know. We could try out a study and we could do it.
I'm
N
good.
equals 1.
It's funny because that's so, like, in that field, there are so many different facts that people just spit out, and it's almost an influx of just overstimulation of information.
Well, it's easy because studies are such small, like sample size, and then they change every couple of years. So like they could tell you one thing for the next 10 years, and then 12 years down the road, they might find that, oh, that's actually bad. And then they switch.
Yeah.
Think about people with like the dietary cholesterol and like eggs and like sodium levels, and everyone's always changing how much you should be having or how much you shouldn't be having, kind of thing like that.
Well, I mean, one thing you said is everybody's different, but as a baseline, do you think that sometimes when people seek out that information, it's almost debilitating because they seek out the information, they get a plethora of different information. Some of it conflicts, some of it's real, some of it's not. And it's like, who do I believe in, when really it's just like, just take action. At the end of the day, I feel like we know what's the right thing to do. Eat a little healthier, do a little activity, like journal, do these kind of things where you're feeding both your mind, body, spirit, you're emotionally balanced, you're building on your emotional intelligence. Like sometimes I just think that it's common sense shit, and when people overcomplicate it, and there was a period of time when, dude, I was reading up on all these things and listening to 3 podcasts a day. And you know what it did? I spent more time seeking out the information than I did actually taking action. And what do you have to add to that?
So there's a couple of ways I can kind of talk about that. So like the second principle that I kind of live my life by is the intentional consumption stuff. So meals and media and things like that. I was in a similar situation. So once I started down that personal development journey and I started changing who I was to be better for all my clients, I was consuming so many like podcasts, audiobooks, courses, coaching programs, and I had so many different ways of taking my coaching. But because I was like, oh, let me find a new way, let me find a better way, that I never took a way or started implementing anything. So that's where the intentional consumption comes into play. I think you've heard me talking about the analogy of like my Jeep and how like the visual is the windshield. So the types of media you consume is kind of like viewing through the windshield. You're driving down the road, you get some bugs and dirt splash up onto it. That's kind of like social media. Spending a little bit of time here and there, it's whatever. Turn the wipers on, you wash it away. The wipers and the washer fluid is like your educational and your motivational content. You can splash it on there, clear it away, you have clear vision again, you can drive down the road towards your goals. But at the same time, too much of that stuff, too much motivation and inspirational, educational stuff can slow down your progress and the rate that you get to your goals too. Kind of like if you've got caught in a serious thunderstorm, you got to slow down, throw your hazards on, and your speed drops drastically. It's the same thing. So the idea is intentionality. So it's okay to eat cheeseburgers, join donut eating competitions and meatball eating competitions, but having the intention behind it, because if I'm doing a pizza eating competition every single day of my life, probably not going to have a lot of energy to do the other things that I want to do, or the motivation if I'm just binging Netflix 24/7.
Yeah.
So it's got to be that little bit of balance and that awareness and intentionality.
Well, I think it also has to do with a little bit of discipline, where it's like, hey, you could scroll for hours. It's crazy. And, it was like 2-3 weeks ago, I was just in this rut, and I found myself doing that, just getting sucked into the doom scrolling and playing the comparison game. And it was just, and I was very conscious of it.
You're hanging out on my page too long?
I was so conscious of it, but I just kept doing it. One more. It was some stupid shit. And, but I snapped out of it because I was conscious of it. And I think, one of the things for me was just the overthinking. And, more often than not, people will come to me and they'll be like, oh my God, you're doing so great. And I'm like, based on what? Where are you basing this blessing from? And I'm super grateful for the people who come up and they're like, oh, I'm so proud of you, or I see what you're doing. And I think that's great. But it's like, sometimes I'm like, give me a call on a random Wednesday. I'll tell you exactly how my day's going. Yeah. And it's hilarious, but it's part of the journey, and I think that, me and you both use social media the same way and very similar ways. And yeah, like it's the windshield thing, too much of it and too much positivity and motivation can be like you can freeze you as well. One thing that you said earlier was that I blanked. I'm sorry. Oh. I totally blanked. I was about to say something. But
I love, though, if I could jump in, is what you said about that, like compared to what I feel like I say that all the time to a lot of my clients and such when they're talking about themselves, or, oh, I've had such a bad day, or, oh, I'm having, I don't want to say the positive, but like, oh, I didn't do as well with my homework. I didn't get as many reach outs, or I didn't do X, Y, and Z. And then they start feeling really bad about themselves. And it's like, okay, well, compared to what? Compared to your best day? Or is it compared to like your normal day? Even for like weight loss and such, people get discouraged and they lose that perspective of things. Same thing when they're talking to you. It's like, oh, everything's so great, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, compared to what? Compared to when you saw me at my worst, or compared to where I'm trying to get to? Because I find myself right in that middle where I'm trying to continually shift that perspective forward so I keep driving and going.
Well, I think also when you're trying to get better, you're always going to feel like you could have done more. And I think that's a great mentality. I've been like, yeah, I should have done more and I could have done more. Tomorrow I'm going to do more. And when you have that mentality and you channel it as, wow, tomorrow's a world of opportunity where I could go above and beyond even more than I did today, rather than, damn it, why didn't I take that extra step today? It's already done, For you working in the physical training space, you obviously also have to build these people up like mentally and emotionally, because I can imagine that folks are comparing themselves to how they looked in their 20s or in their 30s. And so their self-esteem is shot because they look in the mirror and they're not looking like that and they're not getting the attention that they used to get. How do you guide them through that journey?
Yeah.
And incorporate it into your programming?
Well, it's to kind of shift the focus away. So if somebody is comparing themselves to when they were like 21 or 22 and they're like, oh yeah, I was in great shape back then, or even people in the entrepreneurial world and they're comparing themselves to like Grant Cardone and some of these other people, it's trying to shift that focus from the direct comparison of the result, so like the better body, the energy and those things, and shifting it more towards the process. So for example, one of our buddies who I work with in fitness, he was always like, oh, I was in my best shape of my life at this particular moment in time. And I was like, okay, well, what was going on? He said that he was consistently strength training 2 to 3 times a week, and he'd go out for a run twice a week. So I was like, all right, well, where are we at now? And he's like, 0. Like, all right, well,
there you go.
He's like, well, when you were in your best shape, how long was that kind of going for? Like ballpark. And he's like, oh, I probably have been doing it consistently for like 6 months or so. And I was like, all right, well, let's start somewhere around there. Can we do at least once or twice strength training with 1 day of cardio for 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Can we build up towards that process of what we were doing previously, of that 2 to 3 with that 1 or 2 extra, and just working your way there? It's about like the dominoes. Like if you got multiple dominoes, you just knock a couple down and then it all falls down.
Well, it's funny because I just went to my 20th year high school reunion, and
Nice.
Dude, there were pictures, and I looked at them, and I was like, damn, I was like way leaner. I was like, I look good, but like for me to ever think that I'm going to look like that is a fantasy. You know what I mean? Like I almost think that when, I used to be like, oh, I want to be how I was when I was 20, like physical shape wise. But you know what was going on in my life? My life was a mess. So I don't really ever want to be like that. Like you said, there are other things to factor in. Emotionally, I wasn't sound. Mentally, I was a psycho. And I was abusing the shit out of my body with drugs and alcohol. So there really isn't any other place in my life that I'd want to be except for now. And it's because, I'm working on all 3 facets rather than just one. And do you ever have to tell a client, like, listen, like, you're never going to look exactly that way, but let's just build out the best version of you today now?
I guess I would never tell somebody that they can't ever look better or achieve what they might seem as the best for themselves, because it changes with different things. So like hearing you talk about that, I don't know what about being back then. Maybe it was just you were like super lean or whatnot. But
I was playing football.
Yeah, you're active.
I was like running hills and like that was back when coaches actually like beat the shit out of you. Rather than put you through a couple Oklahomas and then that's it. Like they actually kicked your ass.
Dude, if you want to run some Oklahoma drills, you can just call me up. We could squeeze it in at like 4:30 in the morning.
Not yet. I would love that. We get Brandon in there.
Yeah.
So now you're in this personal development space, and you've been speaking in different personal development conferences, and we spoke together at A to B Con. And how have you managed just integrating yourself? I know you go to a lot of networking events. What is your feeling when it comes to just being that motivator, in that way, and building a brand around that? Because, a lot of people are doing it.
What is my feeling in being that motivator there? A lot of people are doing it, but I think if you kind of have that mindset of like the competitiveness with others and like worrying about clients and income and things like that, I don't think you're worrying about the right or the correct kind of things. So it's been a little bit of a journey building my personal brand, and I feel like things are really clicking now, and I can see when I'm talking to other individuals on podcasts or even just in different situations and settings, I'm more confident speaking because I know it's more about me. And I truly feel that what I'm teaching is what helps me and can help a lot of others. But they have to be the right fit for me too. And I have to be the right fit for them. So in the personal development world and in the speaking realm and coaching industry, just the more that I am myself, the better and more comfortable I become, which is weird because I talk a lot about pushing yourself in the comfort zone and stuff like that. But the more you push your comfort, the wider your range of comfortability becomes.
Yeah.
And I think the more that I lean into myself and my stories and the things that I teach, and the more that I refine that, I feel like I'm separating myself from everybody else out there. So then I feel full-heartedly that what I'm saying is totally different from somebody else. But that also doesn't mean that it's always going to land with everybody.
Yeah.
I'm expecting to just land with those who can relate and land with me. Like you and I could say the same exact thing on stage, and part of the audience is going to resonate with me while the other part is going to resonate with you. And it's just your story. What makes you unique is what the differentiator is.
Totally, because, I just went to an event in Philly last weekend, and I met Coach Burt, and he was one of those guys who I saw on Reels, and I somehow got on his newsletter, and I keep getting blown up by it. Whatever. That's neither here nor there.
Great system.
Yeah. It didn't work on me yet, but, I'm sure it sure works on a lot of other people. But, just meeting him in person, because I am very much a face-to-face person. Which is a big reason why I started this podcast. One of my friends was like, why don't you just do like solo podcasts? And I was like, because I really revel in relationships and talking to people and getting to know them, because that's where I get better, when I hear other people's experiences. And authenticity, I think, is often really diluted when it's pumped out through social media with the same edits and the same captions. And don't get me wrong, I do it also. I do it also. But I really think that, but that's why I like involve other people in it, because I'm more concerned with hearing other people's stories, and I try not to be as promotional about it with and making promises to people. But on the other side, it's also an Achilles heel, because that's also how you generate income. So like finding that balance of authenticity with a sales pitch is something that I've recently have been really trying to find that perfect balance, because I think me in person, you're going to get the best version of me, 100%. Just like I did with Coach Brett, because after that, I sat and I did a lunch with him, and, I sent him a really nice email yesterday. I was like, listen, man, like, it was really nice to meet you. I wasn't really sold on, the image Coach Burt, but the man Coach Burt is someone who I could, definitely lean into, and, hopefully something comes from that. What are your thoughts on that?
On just showing up authentically, or
just the delicate balance between being authentic, using social media, and then also, obviously wanting to generate an income.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's I'm going to go back to the awareness thing. You really got to understand who you are, what it is you're doing, the kind of help that you can bring to other people, and try to make that align through everything else you've got going on. Because if if you're pitching one kind of product or a service and it feels like you're just pitching it to everybody, then it's probably not as authentic or aligned with what you're doing. But when I sit down with somebody and I talk about my coaching, I know my value, I know what I can provide, and I know the help that I can kind of give them. So if it's a right fit and if it's something that I can genuinely help them with, I don't feel weird about the different avenues and such. And social media, I try to show up as much as I can on like my personal side of things, but I still need to show people what it is that I do and the kind of help that I can provide. So it's like a balance of trying to figure out what works best for you.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, like the vulnerability component has helped because, you know, I think I never really was my true self in the past. So now it's like, okay, the people who love me the most are like, oh, hey, finally Adam's back, you know, and the people who are just getting to know me trust that, you know, I'm being, you know, honest and with not only my story, but with my commitments to them. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to fucking do it, you know? When you're teaching, when you're coaching, how often do you incorporate stories like where you're like, hey, listen, I was in the same position. This is what I did. You can do it too. Because you're also got to be a motivator in that space.
Yeah. So to be fully transparent, something that I'm like constantly working on as myself as a coach, like, I mean, I'm just human. I don't have all the answers. I just have the answers for what has worked for me. And if I can connect and relate it to you or whoever I'm talking to, then hopefully that lands and then they can take that value and they don't have to go through the hardship or the challenge or the struggle. And they can take that easier route and fast track it. But for me, not everybody always wants to hear what I did or my answers. Then sometimes I have to pump the brakes and like, okay, do you want my coaching hat or do you want my friend hat to listen? And that's something that I'm continuing to work on because everything is so individualized that they're like, you got to be able to be aware. You got to be able to game plan a strategy and you got to be able to implement that strategy. That's really what progress is going to come down to. Because without knowing where you're at currently, you can't get to anywhere else. Without having that strategy or that game plan, you're just going to stay where you are. And you need to, so it depends with each person individually. And as long as I'm constantly getting better, then I can show up and hopefully be better for others.
Totally, man. And, you know, that's one thing that we both have in common where it's all about helping people. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think that's something that wasn't a priority for my entire life. And now it's something that is very important to me because I think giving back is, when you're giving back, you're really giving to yourself because that's why we're here, you know? What is, like, how important is it to you when you see the results and when you see a client grow? How does that make you feel? And can you tell a story?
Yeah, I mean, recently seen some decent success with a couple of my clients with getting new jobs that they've been trying to seek after for a while. That's not where my normal wheelhouse of strength and conditioning, but that's still the same concept of putting in the reps, doing the sets, putting the reps in, but in terms of application, showing up for the interviews, learning from your interviews and changing and growing and setting up means of following up with people and connecting and asking for referrals and building those networks. So that's different from where I'm currently at, but it helps them and then they got better and then they achieve what they want to. So then they can go on and do something bigger or better and helping other people. And that reward for me is seeing them being happier and connecting with more and creating more for the rest of the world. And to me, it's like, that's the whole reason why I'm here, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm attention, trying to connect with others, trying to grow, help other people so I can build my own sense of family. And just like anybody else with their family, when they see their siblings or their parents or somebody else succeeding or doing well, it helps them feel better because they know that their family is growing and doing better. So that's how I feel the same way. And I think I see you connecting with a lot of other individuals and helping them achieve the dreams that they're looking to do, raise the money, have the events and those types of things. I can see you doing well and just knowing that I'm genuinely your friend and I care about seeing you succeed. That brings me more pleasure because I'm sure you've had, like you mentioned earlier, you had friends who stopped calling you or whatever, but I've had people asking for free coaching, asking for free supplements. They're just take from me. And it was like a hard pill to swallow that, hey, maybe they don't have the best interest in me. Maybe I do need to take a step back from that relationship, because if I'm here pushing out and doing everything that I can for others, I would expect that someone's at least trying or rooting for me on the other side.
Yeah, dude, I love how I asked the question, like, what do you get out of it the most? And you went to someone applying to a job and getting it, and not talking about someone maxing their deadlift. And I think you bridge that gap between physical wellness and how it can breed confidence and self-worth and eventually self-love, where you are confident enough to tackle this job interview, and you are confident enough to reach out to, aspirations that you might have had in the past that you were too fearful to, and you can get them. And that was just like awesome. That was the first thing that came to your mind. A couple of my clients got awesome jobs. As you've been, on this journey, obviously, like, you've found, a purpose in what you do. What do you think? How would you define your purpose, actually?
I think my purpose is just growing, helping other people, and just making sure that we're having fun along with it too, because I don't know if that's too vague or not, but I think just like growth, personal growth together for professional success is like, I don't know what kind of tagline or anything you want to put on that, but I think it's just getting better with other people.
Dude, I love that. And having fun. And you do have a lot of fun. What are you, a 2-time champion of the we got to get into this. The one-time champion meatball eater over at Fortina's, right?
Oh yeah.
And then
should have brought the belt in too.
You should have fucking brought the belt. And then you are also the
second place at Baldotti's donut eating competition.
You got to tell my audience how you got into the competitive eating.
Well, that's too,
because someone would look at you, bro, and they'd be like, "He's not a competitive eater. He's way too pretty."
Thanks. Yeah, I heard something recently that was, I can't remember the quote of it, but it was something about like looking pretty but being wild or something like that.
I think that's more about girls, but okay.
maybe. But no, so I don't know, I guess maybe just because like when I was super young, it was always like eating my food as fast as I could, because if I don't have the food, then my older brother was going to eat it or whatever. So I think there was always that sense of, especially with my upbringing with the scarcity mindset and things like that, I think that just transferred over into sports, and it was easier for me to eat more getting into these events. I don't know how I really got into it. Like the meatball one, somebody like brought it up, they talked about it. The donut one, Victoria, my girlfriend, shared about it, and then I signed up for it, and then she wasn't even there for it. So I was like, what the hell? I thought you were going to be there for this.
That's awesome.
But I also did like a spicy noodle challenge with my buddy Caswell that I was telling about earlier. So I have a picture. I was in USA Today for one of the spiciest noodle challenges in the country. I'm sitting there and I'm all like, ugh.
Was it super spicy?
They put ghost peppers in like a bowl of ramen noodles, and you had to like drink the broth, eat the vegetables and all the noodles in 20 minutes. And you can't have any like ice cream or water afterwards. And it was pretty brutal.
Yeah? Did you win?
I finished it, yeah. So me and Sean, he's Puerto Rican, so he usually can handle heat. So we went and we're going at this thing, and we both get about halfway through it. And I'm just like crying, and like my eyes are burning, my hands are burning, my face, my lips, everything hurts. And it's just like snot everywhere kind of thing. Ugh. And then the chef comes over. He's like, hey, I just want to let you guys know you've got 5 minutes left in the competition. And I guess this says something about mindset, because Caswell was sitting there and he's like, fuck it, dude, I'm done with this. I'm not going through any more of that. And meanwhile, I was like, I'm not going halfway through this pain and not finishing. So I just chugged the broth and just scarfed everything down. And I'm pretty sure my body was going into shock because I couldn't control my fingers, and everything just started clenching together like that. So in the picture in USA Today, my fingers are all like clawed up like this. And I'm like crying,
sodium, maybe.
And I'm like this. I'm like, and the guy's like, you got to smile for the picture. And it's just me going, I am smiling.
Really?
So it was pretty. When
brutal. Was this?
This was a while ago. This was probably 2014. Then I did like a sub eating competition at my friend's mom's friend's deli or something a couple years back. That I didn't finish, but I got closest to finishing in that time zone.
That is wild. That is really wild. You talked about, you alluded to Victoria, and how is, just like the people in your life, your family, your girlfriend, what are their roles now in your life? Obviously, we're an adult. How do you water those relationships?
I mean, it's going to sound like a broken record, but I think the biggest thing is the awareness and making sure that I kind of check in with myself. Great thing with Google Calendar, as you know, I'm a big calendar person.
Oh my God, this guy's calendar.
Color coding, because now I can see how much time I'm spending on coaching, how much time I'm spending on fitness training, how much time I'm spending on podcasting, how much time I'm spending on personal date night and things like that. And really drawing the line in the sand on like how much I want to allow myself to do for each thing, and just having
What
that
color
awareness.
is Victoria in your calendar?
Purple.
Nice.
It's her favorite color.
There you go.
Yeah.
Dude, that's so funny. I mean, I should probably do that. But
It just gives that extra awareness.
I don't
of, like,
color
oh, I haven't
code.
done
I
anything
block,
yet.
but I don't color code. His calendar, man, is just like, it's like a Christmas tree.
Yeah. It's
So, when you're like going at 100 miles an hour, I know the last time we spoke, you're like, listen, man, like I'm getting through this and I'm going to slow it down. I think that was back in May. And did you do that?
Was that when we were
We're in
down in Miami?
Yeah, you're like, listen, I got to get through these events. I got to.
I think it was kind of like maintaining kind of thing, because for most of the summer, went to most of the Alive at 5 concerts, did a little bit of traveling for some work stuff, spent time with friends traveling down to Long Island, up for weddings and things like that. So I think I had a pretty decent balance of work and personal life then. Now I'm coming out of August, which is typically a slower season, so I've got a little bit of a break right now, and I set a goal that I was trying to get on X amount of podcasts by the end of the year, and by the end of this week, I'll have already hit that goal.
You're welcome.
About a week and a half into it. Yeah, thank you. But then I think I need to slow down that a little bit and then redirect and kind of game plan for the next thing. Like I had that event last month, maybe bringing in some more workshops, some more in-person events. I definitely have some like virtual workshops and seminars and things that I'm planning for. So right now I think it's more of like that game planning to get into that next sprint season of my life.
Awesome, man. I don't want to take up too much of your time. And, I really wanted to just ask you, obviously that this podcast is about finding purpose. What was a key milestone where you were like, this is going to be my purpose?
I think milestone, I'm not too sure. I think I guess when like people started paying me for the performance coaching and understanding that. But I think really the biggest thing was defining down, because as you know, I've been working for a while on my personal brand, and in the beginning I was thinking I was still doing fitness and nutrition, and once I made that shift into more of like the lifestyle and the performance type stuff, and that it just felt like home.
Yeah.
And understanding my uniqueness and the different principles that really define my life, that right there, it just felt like I was in the right fit. So like kind of like when you put the puzzle in and it clicks in correctly, like that, it felt good. And I was just like, wow, I think this is what I really need to be doing.
And that entails just efficiency, and is it more like the mental component?
For what I'm doing coaching wise?
Yeah.
No, so it's the quick rundown. It's like those 6 principles, which building that resilience, physical, mental toughness, intentional consumption, meals and media, clarity, so understanding who you are, where you're going, the lifestyle you want, and your strengths and weaknesses. Your efficiency, optimization, so your rules and routines, your habits and your schedules, making sure everything's aligned. Then your support system, so working on your team triangle, your social agility, your communication one-to-one, one-to-many, and then creating your own luck, which is just an equation. Preparation meets opportunity. You do those first 5 principles. Now, how do you open up the doors of opportunity? And then all those things, I've got different exercises and things that I do to teach and work people through to kind of bring awareness to the different things that they need to be focusing on. And that just feels like home to me, because I've got great stories to share with people about different things on all those different principles. And it's just fun to me, and seeing and helping other people kind of work through and level themselves up. I enjoy it. It's fun.
Awesome, man. What key pieces of advice would you give to someone on the journey of finding their purpose?
The Biggest thing I would say is just develop some sort of a reflection practice, journaling, meditation, just sitting and just thinking or listening to things around you and just paying attention to the thoughts that come to your mind. Journaling I like because it creates that space from thoughts in your head to words on the paper. And in that little bit of time period, it allows you to kind of categorize and prioritize, and then you can kind of see it, get it out of your head, get it onto paper. I don't know what the quote is, but it was like, if you can write down your problem, it's already halfway solved or something like that. So I fully believe in journaling and how that's really helpful. So some sort of reflection, whatever works for you, because paying attention to what works for you is what's going to move you forward. Absolutely. Stop looking at other people.
Absolutely, man. And if you can, just tell my audience how to get in touch with you, what you have coming up, and whatever else you might have to add.
Yeah, easiest way to get in contact with me would be messages on social media, just at Rob Tracz on pretty much any social platform. The awareness aspect is a huge thing. I'm going to give a little plug here, survivingthesidehustle.com/assessment. That'll give you take a little quick quiz. It takes 5 minutes, shows you your strengths, your weaknesses on those 6 principles, and shows you where you need to work at. Or just, shoot me a DM and we can connect and see if there's something I can help with. Awesome. If it's something that I can share, some sort of resource or connect you with somebody else, even better.
Awesome, man. And Surviving the Hustle host, founder of TAPS Training, my boy, Rob Tracz. Thank you. Be sure to like, listen, review, follow his podcast as well. And we could build this community and impact positive change for a wider audience. Thanks, guys.